Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post with me, Ghadi Francis, our weekly show where we bring you stories from the world's most volatile region. According to watchdog reports, Israel is moving ahead with the construction of thousands of homes in an illegal East Jerusalem settlement. This now threatens to cut off pieces of the city claimed by Palestinians. Interestingly, it comes as the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he had a warm conversation with the US President-elect Joe Biden. Now, what will this mean for the future of Palestinians? Would a Biden White House bring any change? We take a look.
This is the Pompeo wine,
One of the Pompeo bottles.
a red blend named after the US Secretary of State. But it is not just the name of the wine that is trending. Instead, a tag trending #made in legality on the label's top right corner that is equally important. So why does this wine need to mention that in bold letters? That's because it was made in the Psagot winery, which sits on a hilltop in the West Bank. For much of the international community, the winery is located in illegally occupied Palestinian territory. But for the Trump administration, this is a part of Israel. Pompeo paid a visit to this winery, becoming the first top American diplomat to visit a West Bank settlement.
The fact that the Secretary of State of the United States came to our winery is first because of the statement that we are not thieves. We didn't steal those lands. We didn't came here and we didn't conquer it from somebody.
In the twilight of the Trump administration, the US Secretary of State embarked on a trip to Israel. But most people looked at his itinerary, an unexpected stop made headlines around the world. While this would have been unthinkable during any other US administration, nothing is really unexpected when it comes to the Trump administration.
The Israelis, and we've made clear the Israelis have a right to defend themselves.
In 2019, Pompeo announced that the US under President Trump no longer viewed Israel's settlements as inconsistent with international law. Now, as a parting gift to the outgoing administration, Pompeo even paid a visit to one of them. However, he did not just stop there. Pompeo later flew to the Golan Heights, a strategic area that overlooks Israel, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. In 2019, Trump recognized Israel's claim of sovereignty over the parts of the Golan Heights that it captured from Syria in a 1967 war.
To safeguard its security from external threats.
Two iconic visits by the US Secretary of State that has now reversed years of US foreign policy in West Asia.
Alongside of you, about the fact that for a long time the State Department took the wrong view of settlements. It took a view that didn't recognize the history of this special place. And instead now today, the United States Department of State stands strongly to the recognition that settlements can be done in a way that are lawful and appropriate and proper.
He also issued guidelines for Israeli products made in settlements to be labeled Made in Israel when imported to the United States. This now removes the distinction between products made within Israel and those produced in the occupied territory. The United States also said it would label the Israel boycott movement as anti-Semitic.
Today I want to make one announcement with respect to a decision by the State Department that we will regard the global anti-Israel BDS campaign as anti-Semitic. I know this sounds simple to you, Mr. Prime Minister. It seems like a statement of fact, but I want you to know that we will immediately take steps to identify organizations that engage in hateful BDS conduct and withdraw U.S. government support for such groups. The time is right.
Most countries view the settlements built by Israel in the captured territory during the 1967 war as illegal and as an obstacle for the Palestinian cause. In the US brokered normalization deal with the UAE and Bahrain, Israel had promised to put on hold plans to annex parts of the West Bank. But watchdog reports suggest that Israel had approved the construction of 1,200 new homes in an East Jerusalem settlement. While it is tempting to imagine that a Biden White House may simply reset relations with the Palestinians, the real picture might be very different. While Bibi was busy making a joint appearance with Pompeo, the new administration was also on his mind ahead of this crucial Pompeo trip. Earlier this week, Netanyahu dialed the president-elect. The duo even had a warm conversation, according to Netanyahu. A statement by Israeli Prime Minister's office read, and I quote, "The president-elect reiterated his deep commitment to the state of Israel and its security," unquote. While the new constructions may test ties with the incoming administration, Biden may be limited in his ability to stop it, particularly while dealing with a changing West Asia. The coming 2 months, however, provide a key test for Benjamin Netanyahu. While the Israel PM may seek to take advantage of the final days of the settlement-friendly Trump administration with last-minute construction projects, doing so could antagonize the Biden administration, leaving Bibi without a friend in the White House. West Asia Bureau, we on. World is one.
We will continue to bring you stories from the heart of the conflict, but first, as usual, let's take a look at what's making headlines across West Asia.
According to Iran's state media, the country's elite revolutionary guards have added a warship capable of carrying aircraft, missile launchers, and drones to its naval fleet. This comes at a time when tensions are at an all-time high between Tehran and Washington. Saudi Arabia calls on fellow OPEC Plus members to be flexible in responding to oil market needs. This comes amid another wave of COVID infections, which could hamper demand and depress prices once again. The U.S. Middle East commander has said that while troops in Iraq will be cut down to 2,500 on President Donald Trump's order, Baghdad wants a continued U.S. presence in the country to fight the Islamic State. According to reports, Saudi Arabia has told Yemen's Houthis that it would sign a United Nations proposal for a nationwide ceasefire. This is only if the group agrees to a buffer zone along the kingdom's borders. If a deal is achieved, it could become the biggest breakthrough in the conflict.
The Syrian veteran foreign minister Walid al-Muallim has passed away at the age of 79. One of the most prominent faces of Bashar al-Assad's government. Al-Muallim held his job through a decade of conflict and several reshuffles. Our next report takes a look back at his life.
Walid al-Muallim was born in 1941 to a Sunni family from Damascus. His career in the diplomatic service started in 1964. However, Muallim rose through the ranks to become the foreign minister in 2006, a close confidant of Hafiz al-Assad and then his son Bashar al-Assad. Muallim was known for his loyalty and hardline position against the opposition. The veteran diplomat also became the deputy prime minister in 2012. Many who knew Muallim over the years have described him as soft-spoken and diffusing tensions, often with a joke. The public face of Assad's rule to the outside world, Muallim was branded a traitor by the opposition for supporting the violent crackdown on protesters at the beginning of the conflict in 2011. Thousands took to the streets that year, demanding an end to the Assad family's decades-old rule. The protesters later escalated into a full-scale civil war, but Muallim has been a staunch defender of Assad's actions. instead accusing the West of increasing the country's unrest. He also saw his country tilt further towards Iran and Russia, who have helped shore up al-Assad's rule and allowed Damascus to regain most of the territory, once lost to fighters. However, al-Mualem's health was said to be deteriorating in recent years, while there were no details on the cause of death. The 79-year-old had been in poor health for a long time, with heart problems. While many believe al-Mualem's death is now a huge blow to the Assad government, sources close to the government say that his deputy, veteran diplomat Faisal Mekdad, would replace him as the foreign minister.
We have achieved important steps together, and we had hoped Mualem would stay with us until we accomplish what is left in this hard and long road. But Syria has always been giving birth to new generations that take the banner from another one in order to preserve our country from Western hegemony and from their attempts to harm our just causes.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
West Asia Bureau, we own. The world is one.
For the first time in history, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is hosting a ladies' European golf tour. This historic tournament marks the latest push by the kingdom to host major sports and entertainment events. However, these recent high-profile events have drawn backlash, with many accusing the kingdom of sports washing its human rights records. We take a look.
Denmark's Emily Pedersen won the first ever women's golf tournament in Saudi Arabia in a tense playoff with a birdie on the extra hole. Pedersen edged out England's Georgia Hall, securing the $150,000 winner's check in the inaugural Saudi Ladies International. The golf event was held at a country club in King Abdullah Economic City near the city of Jeddah, a scenic golf course alongside the blue waters of the sea. While women players were allowed to wear long shorts in what appears to be a first in the conservative kingdom, most players opted to don pants as a sign of respect for the local customs. However, female golfers dressed in casual t-shirts and trousers was a striking anomaly in Saudi Arabia, an ultra-conservative Muslim nation that has long imposed a strict dress code on women. The changes reflect a loosening of social restrictions that has swept Saudi Arabia since Crown Prince bin Salman's rise to power. Women in the kingdom are also being encouraged to play sports and participate in events.
Coming here to actually compete, it's something that I didn't think of in the past few years, and I'm really, really happy and blessed to be playing on such an amazing course and to start something, writing a new page of history in Saudi.
But the event, which was designed to soften the kingdom's image, has now drawn charges of being a sports washing exercise. Given Saudi Arabia's record on human rights, critics called it rather ironical that an all-women's sports tournament is being held in the kingdom, where several women activists are behind bars and dissent is actively crushed. According to Amnesty International, 13 activists are facing trial on charges such as contacting foreign media, activists and human rights organizations. The CEO of the Ladies European Tournament, however, shrugs off the criticism.
There's also the opportunity for us to grow the game into new territory, and obviously working with Golf Saudi and understanding their vision for the game of golf here, it was a natural synergy. So it was an easy decision, really.
As part of a sweeping liberalization drive in his vision for 2030, de facto ruler Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has accelerated investment in glitzy sports and entertainment events. In March, the kingdom hosted the world's richest horse race after staging the Italian and Spanish football Super Cups last year. It already hosts the Dakar Rally, a 12-day marathon through the Arabian desert. And this month, Saudi Arabia announced that it will host a Formula One Grand Prix for the first time in 2021. The expanded sporting schedule is part of the kingdom's push to draw more international tourists, businesses and investments, and an attempt to lessen its dependence on oil revenue. But critics have accused the country's rulers of sports washing in a bid to improve their image, which has taken a beating because of human rights violations. A bid to shine the spotlight away from its troubling human rights record. West Asia Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Gas-rich Qatar flung open its property market to foreigners, a scheme which gives those purchasing properties the right to call the Gulf nation home. Our next report tells you all the details.
After more than 15 years in Doha, Kenyan national Tina Chadda can finally look for a permanent home for herself and her family in Qatar. The country has now changed its law, offering foreign real estate investors permanent residency benefits. This allows them to stay indefinitely in the country, without the fear of losing their sponsors and having to leave without notice.
It's a really big area.
I think it will allow me to call Qatar home. The fact that as an investor, the same amount that I invested in Portugal, for example, for that same amount of money, I get an investor visa, which gives me healthcare, which gives me a permanent residency. So there's a sense of security about it. Before, this wasn't there. And so I feel more comfortable investing now.
The scheme is the newest in a sequence of measures designed to diversify Qatar's financial system. The kingdom is planning to move away from fossil gas dependency and appeal to overseas capital ahead of the 2022 Football World Cup.
The state aims to diversify the economy and not depend on oil and gas. And also today we are talking about new capitals, which will bring about a qualitative leap in the real estate market in these and other sectors.
Well-heeled people are being invited to think about the glistening seaside tower blocks. Either in Doha's man-made Pearl Island or the model new Lusail Metropolis venture that flanks a World Cup stadium. A $200,000 property secures non-permanent residency for the time period of possession. A $1 million buy gets with it the advantages of everlasting residency, along with free facilities and healthcare.
Because of when you look at the 2030 vision of Qatar, the whole idea is to have expats and locals kind of, working together and trying to promote a long-term outlook for Qatar. And I think in order to do that, you are going to have to be able to allow expats to stay here for the long term.
While Gulf nations have relied on overseas abilities and experience to transform their petrodollars into the area's towering cities, they have seldom made it simple or low cost for expats to make their strikes last. Similar schemes exist elsewhere within the Gulf, however, for a considerably higher outlay. In Qatar's case, it is still unclear how engaging the Gulf nation will be for overseas patrons, especially with its strict curbs on several activities. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
Lions being brought up on the roof of an apartment. Yes, you heard me right. This is the story of a Palestinian baker. The man is raising 2 lion cubs in an apartment in Gaza's most crowded cities. Let's take a look.
On the roof of an apartment block in one of Gaza's most crowded cities. 2 lion cubs prowl among the water tanks and dine on slaughtered chickens, as children rush to take selfies with them. It is a bizarre sight, even in the war-scarred Gaza Strip, that has become accustomed to the unaccustomed. The 75-day-old male and female cubs are called Fatih and Philistine. They have now become playthings for the bored neighbors of their owner, Nasim Abu Jamia.
It's a hobby. Yes, it's a hobby. Since that time in the zoo, I got attached to them and wished to own lions, and thank God, now I got them.
Though animal experts express concern on hearing of the situation, Jamia mentions that he got the cubs from a local zoo, but declined to give any further details. As his nephews, brothers and other children played with the animals, Jamia continues to dismiss the risks. However, veterinarians remained worried about the health of the cubs being raised at home. Experts said that raising lions at home may deprive them of sufficient food and medical care and may result in acute health problems. Palestinian law also does not permit raising wild animals in people's homes. But Jamia and his neighbors remain unfazed.
We are proud to have lions in our area. It was Nazim's dream since he was a child. It's his hobby. Nazim also owns dogs and cats and everything.
Meanwhile, Gaza's zoos complain of a fall in the number of visitors, which harms their ability to feed and look after the animals properly. Even before the pandemic, the zoos were hit by an Israeli blockade, which controls the movement of people and goods in and out of Gaza. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, bringing you more stories from the world's most volatile region. Until then, stay home and stay safe. I am Ghadi Francis, and you are watching WION, World is One.